Welcome back to a brand new video of the Targeted Individual Program, Targeted Experience. The reason why I'm doing this video, because this mission just started, and if you look throughout the map, right? Now, in these maps, they have what is called blue glow. See these things right here? These little blue things, they're called blue glow that you need for this mission. This mission, you have to fill the van with blue glow, right? You see on the side here it says start balloon inflation, ride the Leiden, start balloon inflation. And you look here on this map, there is no blue glow whatsoever, none of them. So again, I talk about how sometimes they just put me in these missions. These are separate maps from what everybody else would play on, and the only people in here are perps. When I say perps, it means they're, agents or whatever. These again, these perps that engage in this sort of thing, right? So there could be epic engineers that are maintaining the Fortnite servers. They're able to create these separate game missions, right? So again, as you guys can see, there is no blue glow on this map. Okay? None whatsoever. Right? So that shows me that again, this is what they do. This is the type of harassment thing that they will engage in, right? And so possibly because they send me subliminal message, because I'm going to look now one appear. Look, it wasn't there before, but look, one appears now. Okay. So as I'm saying, man, ridiculous. And when we talk about this stuff and we show it as TIs, then they want to say that we're crazy, right? Then they want to label us or what have you. But I just want you guys to see what's going on. And also that main mass shooting, I think that this person was probably targeted. He's probably a target individual, probably microchip, probably realized what was happening to him. And I said this before, I said this years ago. What happened when they do this to people in states where, they have open carry? Right? Now you would think that these people would know better and think twice, but they don't, because they can always get away with it, right? They can always say, oh, this person is crazy or this person is that. That's the first thing they said, right? Oh, when you look at the news, or this person might have had mental illness. Nope, there was no history of mental illness within that family. Matter of fact, his neighbor says his family was perfectly fine. Well, that's me. Let me get out this game. I'm gonna leave this mission because what it says, leave mission. So every time they do stuff like this, right, where they know that I'll recognize it because they're looking for the blue glow. Why is there no blue glow? So I'm looking at the map. I'm like, no, there's no blue glow. So I'm just like, wow, But this is the sort of stuff that happens. Okay, let me hold on a second. All right, just had to lower the reflection from the television. These are some glasses that I bought from Amazon. Just reading glasses. Mine was getting, my eyesight was, slowly getting worse. So I had to get these glasses from Amazon. Work a lot better, particularly when something wrong with the computer and I need to see these little small, on the motherboard there's these tiny writings and I can't really read them. So yeah, but they're bad when it comes to reflection and picking up color distortion. My other glasses that I had doesn't do any of that stuff, right? But anyway, as I was saying, so the main shooter, I think he realized that, hey, I'm targeted. I'm probably, probably microchip. It's probably non-consensual human experimentation again, or tracking, what have you. But yeah, when people don't know, and again, when people are like, "Oh, you're gonna do this to me," then, like I said, people will act out in extreme ways, right? And we see this not just in targeted people, but anybody. We see this like within the religious right, right? To how they will, you know, go to abortion clinics, how they will go to all right, let's look at the rally from these Proud Boys, where you have these racist people driving a car through protesters, right? So and these are these are people who have this feeling of being wronged and slighted in the worst way, and they have not been. It's just that they think that way. This is what happened when they feed into propaganda. This is what happened when you feed into lies, when you believe lies, you know? And I always talk about there's always going to be external element that you need to look at. But, law enforcement are a big part of it. Okay? They are part of the agenda. Right? Now, I'm not sure if the manhunt is over, but they still cannot find this guy. And I know they can. They can. They just need to, make the public believe that they can't find him. But I don't know if he claimed that he just started hearing voices after he's never. And this is, it's probably like he's in his 40s. No history of mental illness. Right? He was a army veteran. And and we also got to remember too, in the military, they have done a lot of experiments on military personnel that they don't talk about. Like even like yesterday, they were trying to feed me the narrative of aliens, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna let you guys get away with this shit. It isn't. Yeah, ain't no alien experimentation. It's the U.S. government, its security agencies, and how they use psychology and psychological manipulation to, as I said, the U.S. government agencies are here. Yeah. No, don't worry. I'm not gonna attack them. I don't have the resources to do that, and even if I did, I wouldn't. Okay, I'll take them to court. I'll sue the U.S. government. All right, even though they may try to create this narrative about, like I said, go read the book, "How Schizophrenia Become a what's the name of the book? How Schizophrenia Became a Protest Disease. I think that's the name of it, right? Whereas, and go look at the history again, because we don't look at history. We're not interested in history. You will understand, right? Prior to the civil rights movement, when people were diagnosed with schizophrenia, it did not include violent tendencies. Okay? It did not include violent tendencies. But during and after the civil rights movement, that is when they labeled schizophrenia to and added certain symptoms, one that now includes violence, right? And the civil rights movement, they were non-violent. The people that was committing violence against black people were white people, particularly on the police force. And in these, in southern states, right? It was white people that were committing violence against peaceful protesters, but yet the protesters were being labeled with schizophrenia, which had now included in its definition or symptoms violence. Understand? Like I say, understand how these people are in positions of power, and they can do whatever they want to do. They can create labels. They can change labels. Let's look at how they redefine what torture is. They are always going to redefine things, create definitions, create situations, false flag situation if they have to. False flag in their mind because there's an agenda behind it, but in reality, it's a real action being done to hurt people, right? So when people say false flag operations, it doesn't mean that there's real life actors, but there's also real life casualties, right? It isn't Hollywood. This isn't some Hollywood script where you have people in makeup and all. And some of that stuff might happen in false flag operation, where you might have some actors in makeup, particularly if they going to interview certain people at the scene, they will send those actors to be interviewed, right? So again, you got to understand these things. So when I talk about this, when you study history, not only do you have insights of things that are happening and happened in the past, but you also have foresight, where now you can probably even see through the lies, right? You can see through the bullshit. Sometimes you can even anticipate things or even predict things, you know? And when I say predict things, I don't mean seeing the future. I mean in that, for example, I was talking, saying, when this year alone, from the beginning of this year, look at the number of mass shooting that took place within the United States, mass killing, mass murders within the United States, right? We started out the year with, you had mass shooting back to back, okay? And we're closing out the year where we may have even more mass shooting happening, okay? And again, mass shootings in the past never occur so frequently. Okay, they've always, spread apart by years. Sometimes even, I'm talking about 3-4 years apart. Now they're happening multiple times during any given year. Okay, and you telling me that the FBI, your state and local police department, they're not looking at this pattern, this trend? They're not looking at anything exterior other than the people who are committing these mass shootings, right? They're not looking at how they're being radicalized. They're not looking at those things. See, but if it's a Muslim man, they'll be online looking up and down to say, oh well, he was radicalized online. But if it's a white man that's doing it, a white young man or white young teenage boy doing it, right? They don't look at the online to see how they're being radicalized. And a lot of these times, these white men and white teenage boys, they're killing other white people. They're killing other white people. Okay? So why don't the officials in law enforcement label them as terrorists? Well, they'll label a black person a terrorist. They'll label an Arab person a terrorist, or a Hispanic person a terrorist. We get the terrorist label, though we don't commit these types of mass killings, right? But we're labeled a terrorist for participating in non-violent protests, right? The FBI and they're so quick to label us as terrorists, as extremists, when we are the least extreme people. They've conditioned us to be the least extreme people, except amongst ourselves when we're killing each other. Right? So you got to think about that. And I'll give you guys another example. This has nothing to do with mass shooting, anything like that. But in Sweden, right? Sweden realized, they said, why is it that there's so many young Swedish boys and girls identifying as LGBTQ, as trans? Why is that? And then they start to see this big push on giving children hormonal drugs and castration drugs and all this stuff, surgery. And then as a lot of these children grow up and go out of their teenage years, they start having regrets, right? Until they find out whatever it is. There's something called social contagion. Just like how Facebook use emotional contagion, psychological programs to manipulate our minds, right? Social media also uses social contagion, right? Go on IG, you see all these models, and then you see these pedophiles, these grown trans men and trans women, right, manipulating young, impressionable boys and girls, telling them, well, if you're 14, 15 and your body hasn't developed, then you're in the wrong body, right? This is what they've been doing. So Sweden did research on this, and they realized over the past 2 decades the exponential rise in young boys and girls identifying as trans. And then they look to the years prior to that. Okay? And they saw year by year, there's been a consistent level of young people identifying as such. Very, very low percentage. Very, very low percentage. Right? But when you see that very low percentage shot up over 25% now, over 1 decade or over 2 decades, that's that's crazy. So what Sweden did, they said, you know what, we are no longer going to give young boys and girls hormonal drugs. We're not going to give no surgery. Okay, we are going to wait until they are fully grown adults. Even though they say 18, I think 21 should be the age in where that those things happen. When they're 18, if they want to transition, if they want to wear a dress or whatever, look like a pants, yeah, fine, let them wear that, but no surgery, no hormonal drugs until they're at the age of 21. Okay? Because again, there are people out there in other countries who actually care, who are fighting against this agenda and are looking at certain things to say, look, there's a pattern here that we see that's happening. But what happened in this society in America, where you have people are more interested in money as opposed to doing what's good for the society? This is what happened, and particularly in the black community, where we worship money above everything else, even above the God that we claim to believe in, or the Jesus we claim to believe in. Right? So this is how they know how they control us, using money. People like me, they know they can't control using money. They know they can't silence me. And I speak out against certain things. All right? And I talk about my experience as a TI, as a non-consensual human experimentation victim by the U.S. government and the security agencies, its military. All right? And so they'll create certain narratives, particularly to get away with what they've been doing. And so, but, we are not, and this is for everybody, particularly in the Western society, where you have the elites, whether they're liberals or they're conservative, right? They both work together. Okay, they're trying to outdo each other to see who they can, which they can recruit, right? Who can recruit the most members within the given society? Because it's all about control. It's about control and whatever their agenda is, right? So you always got to remember this. And as a TI, like I said, I don't blame you for feeling the way you feel. Even you could be as angry, and you have every right to be angry. I have every right to be angry. That's just part of our human emotions. We're not. The U.S. like to talk about, how China, how they try to subdue people from protesting by engaging in mind control tactics and psychological manipulation. But the U.S. does it here too. When you look at sports, what do you think happens in sports? When you look at sports, you see the indoctrination. I can see the indoctrination. I don't know about anybody else. I can see the conditioning method that bypasses your subconscious. I mean, your conscious and embeds itself in the subconscious. All right? And I've spoken about this already. When you look at sports, you will see how they do these tight zoom in shot of the American flag on the player's jersey or on the back of their helmet. Or if it's basketball, they'll do like an angle shot where they'll zoom into the side of a player's face and they'll zoom in closer to the player's ear. Right? I mean, we see it. And then they do these type of hand signals. Okay? This stuff is meant to bypass your conscious mind, and it embeds itself in your subconscious. So we've all been programmed. Okay? All right, so I just had this strong sensation in my nose. And again, this is what they do to manipulate, As I'm talking about this stuff, all of a sudden, my nose gets very, very itchy, which doesn't happen, doesn't happen. Only when I'm speaking certain truths, they will do stuff like that. Because again, being microchip, the ability to do certain things, and people talk about this stuff. People are like, oh, it's science fiction or microchip. Listen, I've shown you guys since the 1970s they were implanting chips in people's brain. Okay, Go, like I said, go look, read Dr. Jose Delgado interview at the New York Times, 1970. It's in their archive. And what kind of human do we want to create? And he talks about having a stemmer receiver implanted in a rhesus monkey, wireless. No need for wires. No need for pushing the button as one of the experiments with Dr. Robert Heath, where he took a woman, put electrodes, a chip and electrodes in her brain, okay, and gave her a remote. Of course, it had wires, and she would press the remote. Every time she pressed the remote, she would have orgasm. So she would walk around having hundreds of orgasms every day, okay. And how he took a gay man, implanted the electrode in his brain, and every time he thinks about homosexual tendencies, he gets a shock. Right? They've been able to implant human beings. You talk about smart dose. We talk about nano bots or what have you. All right. Now, do I think there's nanobots running in? I don't know. Didn't take a test on that. All right. To find out. See, that's what I do. You know. Some things I know is happening because I can show you guys. Okay. At any given day when I'm being on the heavy monitored, you listen outside, the sirens, the car honking. I mean, it is constant. Like, it is a lot, particularly when I'm touching certain things. All right? And what they don't tell you is how noise can cause neurological deficiencies in your learning. All right? So all this noise that you hear, particularly if you live in a city, particularly in communities where you see mostly black people live, there is noise 24/7. All right? And I talk about that FAA, the Federal Aviation Association study that they did on noise and the effect that it has on children. And it's not good. But how many of us read these things? How many of us understand these things? When you go in the suburbs where the majority of white people live, do you hear all that noise? And even for white people that live here in the city, the schools that they go to is probably more so well insulated from sound than other schools, which predominantly black kids go to and Hispanic kids go to. Right? I mean, remember, New York City, New York school system, I should say, is the most segregated school system in the country. I mean, come on. You gotta think. Right? Look at the external factors. Don't just look at the person. Obviously, if this person never had any sort of mental illness from young, because mental illness will show itself from you're very young. Okay? All of a sudden, you're like 40 something years old, 50 something years old, all of a sudden you start hearing voices now? No. Particularly, this person was, again, ex-military. Right? And even if he had PTSD, he's not hearing voices. PTSD, you could, because your emotional state has been so damaged that you don't have that control over your emotional state. So this is why sometimes even with your memory, it triggers you, right? And you kind of get these violent spurs, right? Because that is based off of memory. That is based off of trauma. Okay? So again, people got to look at these things. And I talked about her early on in my targeting. I used to get so angry when people targeting me, and then one night I'm going home, and this person called me over to show me a gun. Open up his trunk and say, "Hey, look at this." And I'm like, "I haven't spoken to you in over a decade, and you all of a sudden just happen to just be there as I'm coming home with no one else around now, no one else around. Okay, and you showing me a gun." Just like one night I went to the store, and I came back, and it was like right after 9/11, and you had these two Arab men sitting in the van. One of them is calling me over. "I want to ask you something." I said, "No, no, thank you. I'm gone. No, I'm not interested." All right. Now, if I didn't know any better, again, remember, perception is everything. The feds could be there taking pictures of me because we know the feds love to set people up. They love to set people up to use them as snitches, to have them in their pocket. We know that. This is how the government operates. The CIA operates the same way. They love to manipulate people into committing crimes, so then they can use them as snitches. Okay, we see it happens all the time, all the time. All right. So again, you know, I just had to show you guys what's happening with particularly on Fortnite and what it is that they do. All right, and this is why I do what I do, because people, if I can make other TIs understand what's really happening, right, and make them put things in the correct context, then we can come together as TIs, and then we can file an action class lawsuit against the U.S. government and its security agencies and military for gross uh, conduct on human beings, for the violation of the rights of human beings, gross violation of the constitutional rights and the human and civil rights. Okay, and I say this gross and extreme, you know, disgust. You hear the sound of the fire trucks now? Listen, the fire trucks, yeah. Okay. Again, this is why I do what I do. And yeah, talk to you guys in the next video.